Think about it.
Just over 60 years ago, this New Zealand team strode out to do battle with England in our first official test here at Lancaster Park. They lost by 8 wickets in just 3 days, but we had achieved test status, and with that began a cricket history full of highs and lows, some controversy, but a lot of characters. It had been 36 years since the first national team was chosen. The opponents were the Aussies, this time in the shape of New South Wales. The venue, Lancaster Park, the result, a resounding defeat. In those early years, we truly were the novices of world cricket, and our lads took a lot of stick from the Australian and English greats that toured here. Players like Victor Trumper, for instance, who with his very bat used to pound the pickets wherever he went. The bat was autographed by the 1905 Australian tourists and presented to the New Zealand Cricket Council immediately after Trumper had thrashed 172 runs off the New Zealand bowling attack in just over 2 hours at the Basin Reserve, where it's now housed in the National Cricket Museum. Our crowds were privileged to see such great teams, but New Zealand did have its heroes too. Dan Rees was an all-rounder who captained his country and played top cricket in both Australia and England. And later, Hawke's Bay's Tom Lowry, who in 1927 led a fine bunch of cricketers on a 38-match tour of England. Lowry, who had toured New Zealand with the MCC while a Cambridge University student, led the team to 7 first-class victories and paved the way for test status. They were very popular with everybody, including the press.
When I played in England, the press chaps used to come along and say, please, what do you think? And when I went back in 1927, I thought the same rules applied, but they definitely had changed in those 3 years. And somebody heard me describing to one pressman what I thought of him, and they said, you can't say that nowadays to the press. So you better give him a cocktail party at the Savoy, and we had a marvellous press afterwards.
The team included legendary figures such as Stewie Dempster, who topped the batting averages, all-rounder Roger Blunt, the first New Zealander named as one of Wisden's 5 cricketers of the year, dashing batsman Sess Dacre, who was soon lost to county cricket, and Bill Merritt, an 18-year-old spin bowler who took an incredible 107 wickets. And so we came to test status, but it was to be 26 long, hard years before success was finally achieved. However, cricket supporters did have many great performances to savour. Dempster recorded our first test century in a 276-run opening partnership with Jack Mills, who on his debut also scored a century in the Basin Reserve Test against England. The following year, Tom Lowry's team were introduced to Test cricket England style.
His Majesty the King receives a great ovation from the crowd when he comes to see the Test match at Lord's between England and New Zealand.
And it was Dempster who also scored our first Test century on foreign soil in the opening Test match at the home of cricket.
Is Dempster batting, 49 not out in the second innings. There's his 50. The second 50 of the match. Dempster 96 not out in the second innings. There's his 100. A very great innings.
With Dempster in the record books, interest centred on double All Black Curly Page as lunch approached.
Page playing Allen. 99. No, he couldn't get it. He couldn't get it there.
It was time for a nervous chat and a whiskey with fiery England fast bowler Bill Vose, and it was decided then the first delivery after lunch would be a no ball.
I said, you won't, will you? And he said, yes, I will.
So down came this ball, and I gave it an enormous swish and missed it. But then the next ball came down, and Vos bowled it right at my feet, and I just pushed it away for a single up to mid-on, and that was 100.
Page 99 not out, playing Vos. There's his 100. Very sharp one to mid-wicket close in.
Dempster averaged almost 60 on the tour and continued to play for New Zealand until 1933, when he returned to England to play county cricket for Leicestershire, whom he later captained. It was said he was so revered that the boat which took him to England delayed its sailing so he could complete his last test match. This gate at the Basin Reserve serves as a reminder of his rare talents. New Zealand cricket turned another corner with the 1949 tour of England. The team, led by Walter Hadley, held England to draws in all the 4 test matches. With no cricket in the war years, the team was very inexperienced. Only Hadley, bowler Jack Cowie, and batsmen Merv Wallace and Martin Donnelly had toured England in 1937.
Already they've been practicing at Lord's.
Walter Hadley, of course, has since become the patriarch of our greatest cricketing family. G'day, Walter.
Hello, Ian.
Nice to see you.
Yeah,
How are you?
Come in.
I'd love to, thank you.
Now, we had a very good sort of bonhomie, you know, we were all friends together, and I think the secret of the tour was very successful, was that we all wanted one another to do well. And I set targets on the ship going to England, targets like winning half-hour games outright. I looked for 15 wins, we got 13. I was looking for a century per innings from one or other player in the team, for the team, not for themselves, but for the team. And we had 29 centuries in about 30 matches. A lot of good partnerships. You know, it was a well-knit team. I've no doubt that other teams since have been much the same, and, you know, their friendliness and looking after one another, but we did have that, and it's never stopped ever since then.
The individual highlight of the tour was Donnelly's double century in the second test, a first for New Zealand.
Brilliant weather and the popular New Zealand tourists brought huge crowds to Lord's to see the second test. Early on the scene was the MCC president, the Duke of Edinburgh, who met the rival captain. England's opening was slow, and early blows included the loss of Robertson, who went to Cowie. The heat wave brought out all the latest in headgear. Evans was soon bowled by Birch.
On the third day, Donnelly's 200 was welcomed on the BBC by Roger Blunt.
Last ball over. Hollis to Donnelly, bowled. Donnelly firm outside.
To this day, his score of 206 is the highest recorded by a New Zealand number 5 batsman in Test cricket.
And he was 126 not out at stumps. And then the next day, he simply massacred their bowlers. I mean, Trevor Bailey was a good bowler by any standards, and he had 5 men on the boundary. Give you an idea, you know, how Martin was plastering them, hitting them all over the place. Oh, a truly great player.
The tour may be Walter Hadley's favourite cricketing memory, but I'm sure he'd prefer to forget this.
Gladwin was missed by Hadley. Oh, butterfingers! But the inevitable draw proves once again that our visitors are deserving of at least 4-day tests.
But one young player on that tour was not all that concerned.
A 3-day test then, we thought that was the greatest, against what we thought then was the greatest country, cricket playing country in the world. So what more could you ask for? You were virtually the boys amongst men when you got over there. Right. Not the way it is today, where the chaps are playing so much cricket in so many countries that a tour is just another tour. But this was a tremendous occasion. And we played so much cricket comparatively that I played 49 first-class innings, which was the equivalent then of 5 years of cricket in New Zealand. They were playing alongside Martin Donnelly, for example, the first time. He was my idol, you know, and I used to look at him and think, Oh, I can never bat like that. Well, neither I could either, because he was Donnelly and I was me, and that was it. But just to have him there, and people like Merv Wallace and Wal Hadley, great mentors, you know, and we've been great friends ever since.
And the baby of the team remembers the tour as a great learning experience.
It was still rationing in England in 1949, and we used to get the wives, and I wasn't married at that stage, of course, but mothers used to send over cake and this sort of situation. We'd sit around our hotel rooms and talk cricket. How do you play an off spinner? You know? What's the next bowler going to do? Is it ball moving? You know, where do your feet go? I learned all this from our own team. Magnificent.
The talented left-hander Martin Donnelly was resident in England at the time, having attended Oxford University, from where he represented England at rugby union in 1947. He now lives in Sydney. It's often said that cricket is a character-building game, and the New Zealanders who played South Africa at Ellis Park on Boxing Day 1953 needed all of theirs. The Tangiwai disaster in New Zealand on Christmas Eve claimed 151 lives, including the fiancée of New Zealand's young fast bowler Bob Blair. Naturally, the grief-stricken Blair was unable to take his place with the team on the second day of the test. South African fast bowler Neil Adcock showed no signs of pity as he launched a ferocious attack. Several New Zealand batsmen suffered, including Bert Sutcliffe, who was invalided to hospital but later returned to the fray.
One of the chaps in the dressing room came along. He said, "Here, drink this." And he gave me about a 5-ounce glass of scotch.
Right.
So I drank it. And I had not the slightest feeling. I suppose the whole system was so numb at this stage. So eventually when a wicket did fall, you know, that's when I went out. And for some reason I thought, oh, well, I'm not here to hang around. And I think the first or second ball from Tayfield went over the fence. Well, the crowd went wild at that lot, you know. And 7 sixes later, they were still going wild, you know. And it was just one of those utterly stupid things.
When the 9th wicket fell, Sutcliffe headed for the dressing room, but then Bob Blair emerged from the tunnel.
We were all in a state of shock, and I'm not afraid to admit now, and I admitted it before, that I cried when he came out. And so did 11 South Africans and 2 umpires. And as Bob walked out, there was just a complete hush over the ground. It was almost eerie. I'm at the other end and I'm wanting to get out of it all. And then suddenly he swings the bat and it goes over the top. Well, you should have heard. That's when the place erupted.
Right.
You know, and that's the way it stayed until we finally got out, and that's the way it happened all the way back to the pavilion. But it's a day that never should have been.
At the end of that traumatic day, the team were not thinking too much about runs and wickets. Their thoughts had reverted to home. New Zealand cricket's growing pains continued on March 28, 1955. It was a day best forgotten.
They came, they saw, they conquered. Len Hutton and his team outwitted the Aussies and demolished New Zealand in the second test at Eden Park, Auckland. Thousands of grandmothers died, and a record 18,000 saw the famous English cricket team in action.
After trailing England by only 46 runs, hopes were high for a positive result as we went into bat on the third day.
The terrible Tyson to Sutcliffe.
One Christchurch cricket enthusiast even boarded a plane for Auckland to witness the event. He need not have bothered.
The whole ground went numb, and I think the score was 16, and I was 5th out and I had 11. So I walked off the ground and went in, had a shower, got changed. And I'm just putting my tie on, because in those days you weren't allowed to sit or stand without being properly dressed.
Right.
And I'm just putting my tie on the last pair walking. And it was all over by the same afternoon. Quite an incredible situation.
And this is how cameras of the day captured the nightmare.
Here are the killers in slow motion. Statham. Tyson. Wardle. Appleyard. If only they could have been slowed up. New Zealand, all out for 26, makes Test cricket history of the most ignominious kind. As the debacle developed, silence fell on Eden Park and over the whole of New Zealand.
And the headlines said it all. But Bert Sutcliffe still sees the funny side.
And certainly the name will be in Wisden's, I think, forever and a day. I don't think we'll ever get below that, will we? I hope
certainly
not.
hope it's not another New Zealand side anyway.
Not while you're batting anyway.
But in cricket, as in life, there's always another day. And that day was March 13th, 1956. New Zealand gained their first Test victory by beating the West Indies at Eden Park, with the fall of the final wicket coming after tea on the 4th day.
And now Cave comes in from the scoreboard end to bowl, and he's stumped, he's out, the Test is over.
The win was a cartoonist's delight. New Zealand's captain that day was John Reid.
Cheers for John Reid, you can hear down below. Thank you. We'll get over to you in a minute. There's so many cheers going on down below, it's impossible to hear.
And it was a good West Indies side with Sobers in it and Weeks in it and Bramenden and Valentine, those sort of guys. So it was a pretty good side. We made a plan to bowl with 4 medium pacers, Harry Cave, Don Beard, I think it was Tony McGivern and myself. We were all bowling fast medium stuff. And we tied them up with that. The plan worked in that sort of situation. And no, we had a very good win, and it was very much needed for New Zealand cricket. And of course, I was thrilled to have a win in my first season as captain.
So it was for the very first time that a New Zealand side actually knew the joy of pulling out the stumps with a winner's smile. And these were those very stumps. However, it was 6 years before we tasted success again, but it was a big one, our first victory overseas. John Reid made 92 and Zin Harris was our first century maker for 7 years as New Zealand totalled 385.
Zin Harris, who was in devastating form. He hammered everything loose and reached his century. The fielders got tired of him, but the crowd didn't. And when he was out for 101, he left the arena to a standing ovation.
Good bowling by Jack Alabaster.
Caught by Dick off Alabaster for 11, when Waite was joyously
And Frank
caught by
Cameron
Murray
set up a
Captain.
decisive advantage.
It was the beginning of the end. LG Hooks, Cameron,
South Africa was set 408 to win. Reid's men were not to be denied.
As Burke loves bowling straight into the hands of Motts, who almost swoons with delight. Alabaster bowled Athol McKinnon round his legs. The final curtain fell when Lawrence was out, and the jubilant Kiwis won by 72 runs. Congratulations to John Reid and his men, the first New Zealand team ever to win a Test match on foreign soil.
I think that first win overseas and this tour of South Africa in 1961-62 did a tremendous amount for New Zealand cricket. The confidence of the public had in, at least we had someone to match the All Blacks who won a match occasionally. It was a magnificent performance from a New Zealand team who, without too many stars in it, but they were tremendous team spirit. And I think after 1949, the 1961 team was the team I'd most like to have a reunion with. So I'd like to get that organised, fellas.
And it's no wonder he wants a reunion as he headed both the bowling and the batting averages in that drawn series.
What a tower of strength the New Zealand captain has been. All bowlers are Canterbury lamb to him.
The achievements of John Reid and Bert Sutcliffe, often in losing teams, cannot be overestimated. New Zealand achieved 3 Test victories in Sutcliffe's era, but incredibly, he was absent each time.
Of course, I've always said then that as soon as I stopped playing, I started winning. But I'd played 42 tests at that stage here, never on the winning side once. You know, it almost seems laughable, but, well, it's a record that not too many people have, is it?
No, you're right, not that many tests anyway. After 5 years away, Sutcliffe returned to our Test ranks in 1965 and completed a century in the Calcutta Test, 10 years after his first tour to India.
I had myself a little cry privately because never in my life before had I needed to prove to myself first, to my teammates, And to all those people back home who thought at 41 I was too old to be playing Test cricket, that I still had it in me. That was a tremendous satisfaction in that one.
Bert Sutcliffe, in contrast, was a classical left-hander. Tremendous strokes, lots of strokes. Couldn't keep him quiet, but he played it on a more orthodox manner. And, you know, very, very good left-handed batsman.
The fondest memory is when someone shakes you by the hand, really, and presents you with a New Zealand blazer and a cap with a silver fern on, and you put that on, you feel 10 feet tall.
John Reid captained New Zealand a record 34 times, a natural all-rounder. He even deputised as wicketkeeper in 3 tests.
Well, I think it was a period of about 5 years when I had John in my World 11 as the best all-rounder. There's nothing that guy couldn't do. He used to bat brilliantly, he bowled brilliantly, he fielded brilliantly anywhere. He was a great catcher. He had so many strings to his bow, he could win matches single-handed. And that's not given to many people, is it? No. As you well know, you know, you might have a strike force, but he can't do it all on his own. And suddenly you find somebody who's quite capable of doing it. And John Reid was that man.
Reid moved to South Africa in 1981, where he coached first class and club cricket, but he returned home this year.
Right.
Throughout his career, he shouldered a heavy burden with both bat and ball because of the inexperience of his teams.
In later years, in the 70s and 80s, there were up to 6 players who had Test centuries, and that makes a tremendous difference to the batting length of any team. You know, some people have been unkind enough to say I played one-day cricket at Test level, because I have hit a few sixes in my time, and but I had to watch that a bit, and I was very conscious of the fact that I couldn't really have a go and throw my wicket away, although I did on occasions.
And how did he approach his role as an all-rounder?
Well, I used to have an attitude where, being an all-rounder, if I failed with the ball, I was a batsman. And if I failed with the bat, I was a bowler. And I think that's what I tried to do. I tried to dedicate myself to the job of whatever I was doing. I was an aggressive type of cricketer.
New Zealand cricket was still very much an amateur operation, but talented players were on the scene. Players like Victor Pollard, Mark Burgess, the gritty and determined Bevan Congdon, all-rounder Bruce Taylor, batsman Brian Hastings, fast bowler Richard Collins and spinner Hedley Howarth, wicketkeeper Ken Wadsworth and 19 times Test captain Graham Dowling. A young Worcester professional named Glenn Turner was also making his mark. Test victories were achieved in the late 1960s against India and the West Indies at home and against India in India, as well as our first away series victory in Pakistan in 1969. Also that year, fast bowler Dick Motts became the first New Zealander to take 100 wickets in Test cricket. The 1972 tour of the West Indies was notable for many fine individual performances, not the least being 4 double centuries by Glenn Turner, including 2 in Tests. In the 4th Test, he scored 259 in a New Zealand Test record partnership of 387 with Terry Jarvis, who scored 182.
We were not expected to win. In fact, we were expected to lose. And so when one reflects on it now, the fact that we drew that series, and it was a 5 test match series, was a victory in a way for us. But the frustration that I had, and I'm sure some of the others had, is that invariably we were chasing large totals. So we were looking to save games. And the innings that I played just became endurance affairs. And although, because I got some double hundreds and so on, I suppose it's fair to say I had some success, but they were not going towards a victory, and therefore the enjoyment factor was limited because of that.
And how did they get through such a long partnership?
I suppose you have quite a lot of mid-wicket conferences, and Jarve was always quite a good communicator out there, and you would talk each other through it a little, you know, especially if you felt that you were getting to a vulnerable stage because you were struggling with the heat and your concentration levels were dropping. So, you know, we tended to get pretty used to each other. We probably spoke more to each other during that innings than at any other stage.
Other major successes were Bevan Congdon with both bat and ball, and Bruce Taylor, who took 27 wickets in the series, including this dismissal of Gary Sobers. The name R.E. Redmond really smacks you in the eye when you look at the statistics of New Zealand Test cricketers. A batting average of 81.5, yet Redmond played only one Test. In a glorious debut, he scored a century off only 110 balls, and in one over from Majid Khan, he scored not one,
It's a full toss and 4 runs.
not two,
Fortunately, it was wide. There's his 50. He scored off 58.
not three,
Well, that's a beautiful shot.
or four, but 5 consecutive fours.
It's away for 4 more.
And soon after, he survived an over-exuberant crowd reaction.
Crowd a little premature here. Redmond's on 99, but he won't be able to play on for some time as the crowd's milled all over the wicket. And it's through the field. This time it's 4 runs.
Then he was duly crowned as the King of Eden Park.
Not at all happy with all the adulation.
Being lifted shoulder high now.
I haven't seen this in cricket in New Zealand before.
Then the next day, Brian Hastings with a century and Richard Collins set a world record 10th wicket partnership of 151 runs.
And the partnership worth 128. 3 to establish a new record. Big hit from Collins.
Collins' 68 not out is the highest score by a New Zealand number 11 in Tests. The 1973 tour of England is best remembered for Glenn Turner's 1,000 runs before the end of May, one of those peculiar milestones cricket followers thrive on.
I didn't think much about it until it got very close, and then the media made me very conscious of it. The other players around me obviously got involved in it as well, and therefore it became important to do. And almost when it happened, it was a great relief in a sense. But I suppose it was an interesting little touch in that the guy that I actually got the 1,000 runs from was Bishan Bedi. Because when he was bowling to me, I thought, well, the Sikh's going to be my downfall. Now, my wife's a Sikh. This guy with the patka or turban on is bowling to me now, sort of thing.
Turner needs just 4 more runs to become the only batsman since the war to score 1,000 runs in May. Glenn Turner, 4 to go.
But Turner duly followed Sir Donald Bradman in becoming the only other foreign player to achieve the feat.
Turner has gone for his square bat shot, and there it is. He's square cut it away to the fence. 4 runs to Turner, and he's done it. The players of the Northampton side are clustering around him.
But one of the most disappointing aspects of that whole episode was that I didn't then go on to have a very successful Test series, and perhaps emotionally I was a little drained. I mean, it's hard to work out, but certainly my performance level did go down after that.
New Zealand were unable to break their duck in Tests against England, but came oh so close. At Trent Bridge, after being dismissed for 97, we fell only 38 runs short when chasing 478. Captain Bevan Congdon scoring 176 and Victor Pollard 116. Then at Lords we scored a massive 551 for 9 declared, but couldn't bowl England out twice. For the first time though, New Zealand had 3 century makers in an innings. Congdon almost matched his Trent Bridge effort with 175.
A magnificent drive, belted through extra cover by Congdon, giving the fieldsman no chance. Superb off drive.
Mark Burgess got 105. And Victor Pollard scored his second ton of the series.
Bouncing away in front of the boundary and running into the ropes now.
The following season, Australia agreed to official test matches against us for the first time since 1946.
And Redpath is staying. Howard has taken a catch and he's been given out.
Their indifference towards us was to provide ample motivation.
We were literally snubbed by Australian cricket. They were playing test series against all the other countries, but not New Zealand. And I didn't really want to feel as though I was second class, and I didn't think any of the other players in the side wanted to feel that either. And we'd been invited over to Australia on numerous occasions to play against their state sides as a national team. And I thought that it was rather humbling to have to tolerate.
New Zealand led on the first innings thanks to a century by Glenn Turner, who after the second day had been left stranded on 99. Then Richard Collins and the Hadleys, a young tearaway named Richard, and brother Dale really took the attack to the Ockers. And there's no mistaking a slip catcher here, is there? New Zealand needed 228 to win in almost 2 days. And again, it was Turner who led the way, becoming the first New Zealander to score a century in each innings of a test match.
Well, there it is. And the crowd rise to Turner. Has written himself in the history books today.
It was wicketkeeper Ken Wadsworth who hit the winning runs, and throughout the whole country people stopped to enjoy the moment. Tragically, Wadsworth was to die from cancer only 2 years later.
And there it is. The test match is all over. New Zealand's first great victory over Australia.
New Zealand cricket in a way coming of age, certainly in the eyes of the Australians. And that was important for us, I think. I can recall at that time, I think that the chairman of the board wanted to give us a bonus. And that took us all by surprise. But, yeah, sure, we were pretty elated about it.
Glenn Turner is the only New Zealander to score 100 first-class centuries. Many achieved during his county career with Worcester, but his professional attitudes to the game often had him at odds with administrators in this country, and for a long time took him off the national scene.
We were non-professional in most of our approach in this country at that time. And I thought I was very patient, and I put up with a hell of a lot for a long time. Many would deny that, I'm sure. But I did. In my own mind, I felt that I had done that. And one just gets to a point where you say, hey, that's enough. It doesn't make any sense. I'm not prepared to keep going along that path any longer. So you kick up a little bit of a fuss about it. I wish I was starting now, because it would have been a much smoother ride through, and I wouldn't have had all these scraps and disagreements. There wouldn't have been a need for them. And therefore I think it would have reflected more on my cricket, and I could have enjoyed it more. So yeah, I wish I could kick off again right now. Just give me a new body, would you?
All sports have their special feats, and for cricket bowlers, nirvana is the hat-trick, and Peter Petherick assured himself of a prominent place in our cricketing history by achieving the feat on his test debut against Pakistan in 1976. Incredibly, the hat-trick came at a time when his figures read 0 for 96. Actually, Pete, tell us about those 3 wickets that fell. In fact, I think we've got them up here if you want to have a quick look at them.
Yes, certainly.
The first guy, that's me and Dad, and you know, people in New Zealand will appreciate how great us Kiwis feel when we get rid of me and Dad. I think he was on 100 or so at the time. What were you thinking at the moment?
I was thinking about trying to get him out, or get 1 wicket at least, because they'd put on about 280, I think, these two.
Richard Hadley took the catch there?
Yes, me and Dad played a pretty lazy shot. He'd been there a long time, and the ball did bounce an extra foot there, and that's probably why top edged it, which was starting to help us more than them.
Always good to see the back of Jarvid Mandad. I mean, we've had problems for 10, 15 years trying to get that little fella out, haven't we?
We certainly have. He was 19 there. My first game in first class cricket, I think I bowled about 15 minutes before I got a wicket.
Right.
But I bowled there for about 4 hours.
Yeah.
So it was a relief to me and the team.
And they put on, as you said, a couple of hundred. And the next guy out was, who's this? Wasm Raja.
He's a left-hander, yes. He, to my amazement, he played a bad shot. He just hit it straight back to me. I was delighted, of course.
Right.
But it was a pretty forceful shot for a first shot in the test match.
He was that kind of player, though, Raja, wasn't he? He'd go for
Certainly
anything, first up. Kind of player that would give you a chance at any stage. What's going through your mind now? I mean, is a hat-trick?
Yeah, it's most certainly going through my mind now. I think, well, we've got 6 wickets. Certainly, I think you can see me standing at the back there walking around in circles, quite nervous about the whole thing.
So you actually were nervous at this stage?
I was probably excited.
So you actually at this stage you're just looking to make him push forward, make him play the ball?
Yeah, make him play it, and that, he definitely hit it. And that was a brilliant catch, absolutely brilliant. I actually appealed and turned to the umpire and he was unmoved. And I thought no. And then actually Intercar balked.
So actually at that stage where you made the appeal, you weren't confident at all, bearing in mind, of course, you were in Pakistan, that you might not get the decision you wanted.
Yeah, I might not get the decision, but when I turned again, all the players were running at me. He definitely walked, which was pretty good of a Pakistani.
It was pretty rare for a Pakistani.
And the umpire did give him out once he saw the back of him, but I don't think he was going to give him out if he had stayed there.
That's probably the most rare form of cricketing footage in the world, seeing a Pakistani walk off like that.
Oh, I would think so.
I
think the most rarest thing is if I had got him out of LBW, that would have been real rare, I think.
I don't think there's much chance of that, mate. And the ball itself, did you get to keep it?
Yes, our manager then took it back to New Zealand, and the New Zealand Council mounted it on a cup for me. But unfortunately, when I was playing in Otago, the ball fell off the mount, and I gave it to the Otago Association. I haven't seen it since, which is quite annoying, really.
A hat-trick at, at the very top level to any bowler must be great. It must be, sort of like a hole-in-one to a golfer, wouldn't it?
There's not a hell of a lot of people in the world that's got a hat-trick, and as you said, I think a hole-in-one would be a great way of describing a hat-trick in cricket, because there has been a lot of bowlers have 2 in a row, but never achieves a 3rd one. It's an achievement that I'll treasure and I'll never forget.
When England toured early in 1978, few could have predicted the drama that would unfold in the first test. New Zealand led by 13 runs on the first innings, but then collapsed to be all out for 123. All seemed lost.
And I remember walking down the stairs with Richard Collins, just taking the field late on the 4th day, I think it was, just after tea, and the crowd was sort of booing us, saying, oh, typical New Zealand, you've let us down, and it was disappointing to hear that. But it must have really got us riled up because we needed that sensation. Boycott was the sensation, being bowled by Collins for naught.
And he's bowled him! What a magnificent start!
Wickets were to fall at regular intervals throughout the afternoon.
And Marabek Nolan's up in his and he's looked at that one, he's going to be out.
Stephen Bock may not have got a bowl, but he did know how to join the party.
Two men in front of the wicket on either side.
And so a magic afternoon ended. Victory appeared a formality.
And England lose their 8th wicket. 8 for 53.
A little bit of rain sort of delayed the process, and we thought, goodness, we could be denied of this great victory.
But the cricket gods smiled.
What a find, that's the one they wanted.
Again a stab.
Bob Willis caught Jeff Howarth bowled Hadley. Hadley 6 for 26. England all out for 64, and 48 years of trying had ended on February 15th, 1978. Sharing that thrilling occasion with Hadley were Jeff Howarth and John Wright, who'd scored 50 on his debut. All were to make huge contributions to New Zealand cricket in the 1980s.
The celebrations were so great that John Parker, who was strictly teetotal, he in fact indulged. I think probably the only time he's ever drunk alcohol in his life, he indulged in a couple of glasses of champagne, so that shows how much the victory meant to the players.
Wright's 50 came with the help of a charitable decision.
Bob Willis opened the bowling with the wind behind his back, and he bowled, I can remember the first ball because it was a pretty useful nut. It was a little bit short, about middle and leg, and went away a bit from me, and there was a hell of an appeal behind the stumps. But as the umpire, to his eternal credit, judged in my favour, and then I think I proceeded to thrill the Basin Reserve spectators by racing to 55 in the day's play.
The win created great excitement, but there were still those sceptics.
We played in Christchurch the next test, and I went in to have a haircut, and I was sitting and waiting, and there was a guy having his haircut, and then the barber said to him, you know, wasn't that great about the cricket win against England, first ever, and the bloke said, oh, it's probably a bloody fluke.
Holding to Howarth.
The Howarth years were about to begin, and those sceptics were to become supporters. It was a time for New Zealand to end their apprenticeship, but the intended victims were not always that cooperative.
The workshop's end, he'll be bowling to Howarth. Did it again.
In Geoff Howe's first test as captain, New Zealand had the awesome West Indies at their mercy, needing only 104 runs to win in nearly 5 hours. But the visitors' bowlers had other ideas.
And he's caught behind by Derek Murray. Cairns is out. The 9th New Zealand wicket down for 100.
All of a sudden we were 9 down, and Stephen Bock and Gary Troop, I think, were the last two guys in, and you know, we still needed 3 runs to win, and it was very tense.
They can tie or win this game as Garner comes in to Stephen Bock. Last ball of the over. It's up to him. They're looking for a leg by. There's indecision. It's coming to this end, but New Zealand have won. New Zealand have won this test match, the first test match against the West Indies.
New Zealand stopped around about 5 o'clock that particular day. Anyway, we managed to scrape through on a leg bye, and we were obviously overjoyed and jubilant about the whole thing. Unfortunately, the West Indies didn't take too kindly to it. They thought they'd been hard done by certain decisions and what have you it is, but basically it was just a bout of very bad sportsmanship and something that, you know, cannot be condoned, and they deserved all they got for the way they acted. They were like sport brats, basically.
The West Indies made few friends on that tour, with stump booting, umpire barging.
Well, he hit umpire Fred Goodall on his run-up, deliberate action, obviously.
General indifference.
And this has prompted Fred Goodall to move down to skipper Clive Lloyd.
The West Indians...
And extra long tea breaks being in their repertoire.
And there are some murmurs down below that they're refusing to come out because of an umpiring decision earlier on this afternoon. It's quite incredible, it really is.
However, some decisions did seem rather harsh.
Dangling in a little bit there. Maybe it been a little bit of deflection, who knows?
And then we went on to draw the next 2 test matches and so win the series. So obviously a great start as far as my situation as captain was concerned, but also it was a very important start for New Zealand as a team, because they'd learnt a bit more about confidence and about winning.
The 1980-81 tour of Australia made our players household names. The reason? One-day cricket.
What a catch!
And the never-to-be-forgotten third final at the Melbourne Cricket Ground. First, there was Martin Snedden's greatest catch that never was.
And Greg Chappell is staying there. And the umpires have said that's not out. And Howarth is having a word with umpire Cronin.
Chappell went from 58 to 90 before justice was finally done for Snedden by Bruce Edgar.
Greg Chappell plays one away, and there's another one taken out there. Beautiful catch this time. Greg Chappell's on his way. What a magnificent catch.
Then Edgar led New Zealand to within sight of victory.
There he goes. Well played, Bruce Edgar. What a fine hand. Congratulations to him. He's going back for the second and he gets it. Edgar 101. 52,000 people in front of their seats.
Well, it did keep very low.
There you go.
Hitting a six at the Melbourne Cricket Ground is no easy feat, but there was a feeling that if anyone could produce a miracle, then Brian McKechnie could. In 1978, he'd helped the All Blacks to a Grand Slam on the tour he was not even originally selected for.
Pushed out of the line-out, the big New Zealand lock forward, and this could be the kick of the decade for Brian McKechnie. McKechnie!
Now he had to try and win another game on another tour he was not originally selected for. And how was he feeling at the time?
Well, before that, I was feeling relaxed because I thought you were going to do the job for me.
Good one, mate.
But, I mean, walking down there, I think, in your mind, you think, God, you know, 6-1 ball at Melbourne of all grounds.
But the Chappells were already plotting.
Well, it looks to me as if they're going to bowl underarm off the last ball. Rod Marsh is saying no, mate, but I'm sure he's going to bowl an underarm delivery.
At that stage, I just didn't know what to do. I mean, I just froze, sort of thing, you know. I mean, never ever contemplated that was going to happen.
They're going to bowl an underarm. We ever believed it. And that's a disappointing finish. Disappointed Brian McKechnie, the crowd boo, and it's all over.
The only thing I thought of, well, I'm not going to be embarrassed by getting bowled by this damn thing.
So Brian McKechnie's last act in international cricket was in fact to throw a bat.
I've seen very few people who can hit sixes at Melbourne, and often they haven't hit it first ball. Most times it hasn't been first ball. I didn't give myself a chance in hell, but what it did was deny the opportunity to have a go.
Right. Have you ever thought, if you had to do it again at some stage, what kind of method you might use to do it?
I guess afterwards I did. And I thought, when you think about it later, I thought, well, you know, you can flick it up with your foot.
Why the hell didn't you do that 11 years ago?
Who the hell are you telling me about tactics?
Oh, can I have that?
That particular incident was the best thing that ever happened to New Zealand cricket. And I'm very grateful for Greg Chappell to instruct his brother Trevor to do it. And I think New Zealand was probably very grateful, even though it did cause, obviously, a great stir in at the time it happened.
Everyone got in on the act. Then Prime Minister Robert Muldoon said it was appropriate the Australians were wearing yellow. Cricket would never be the same again. India was beaten in 1981 and a series drawn with Australia the following year thanks to a marathon innings of 161 by Bruce Edgar.
That's it. 4 runs to Bruce Edgar. He's 103, his 3rd Test century.
Morrison to Border.
He hits it in the air and he's caught by Howard at mid-on. Australia are all out for 280. New Zealand have to score 104 runs to win the Test match.
New Zealand, just one to win this Test match.
And it was finished in style.
Headley goes for it. It's over the top. And it's 6, and New Zealand have won.
And we were getting victories off the field as well.
You've always been regarded as a bit of a prankster in the New Zealand side. Is it true that you once stuck prawns in Rod Marsh's wicket-keeping gloves?
Yeah, it is actually. It was a pretty silly thing to do.
Could have been worse. Could have been Dennis Lilly's.
Yeah, I wasn't that silly. Rodney didn't open those gloves. We were in Perth, and he opened his bag with the prawns in his wicket-keeping gloves 3 days later in Sydney, and by all accounts, they were pretty ripe from some of his teammates making 1 or 2 suggestions about Rodney's odour. He didn't talk to me for about 10 days. I'd forgotten about it until, someone said, God,
Marshy's hacked off, and I knew he either knew it was me or Kenzie. And when we batted, I could remember, Rod walked past me and I went to talk to him, and he just, I could have been a brick wall, and all I could smell was Ajax and rotten prawns.
It was World Series cricket that again captured the public's imagination in 1983.
No.
2 balls remaining. He's bowled it well. They're 3 for 1 only. Dear, oh dear. Look at Howarth. He's working overtime. What a skipper under pressure this man's proved to be over recent years. Vic Marks is the batsman. The final delivery of this great match. He's bowling! And victory for New Zealand, and England go down in a cliffhanger. The new crowd goes absolutely mad. Great over for Martin Smith.
Then in Adelaide, a 121-run partnership by Jeremy Coney and Richard Hadley gave us an unlikely victory.
Oh, and he's got him away, and that's 4. Or is it? It's Randall diving, and it's 4, yes, and that's a vital one. They must have been on their knees at the break, New Zealand, chasing 296. Tremendous team performance to date. 3 runs, 8 deliveries, 4 wickets in hand. Englishman charging in. We've got the 2-8. That's a good hit. That'll be it. Down the ground. They're through for 1. Cabaret chasing. 2, 3, 4 in New Zealand. 3, and they've won. Look at Jeremy Coney. Look at the New Zealand dressing room. And why not one of the all-time great performances, Jeremy Coney.
The finals were lost, but Lance Cairns was to become a folk hero.
I think Australia got a huge score, and we go out there to chase it, and next thing we're about 6 down for 30-odd, we're right out of it. And so I get out there with Wally Lees, and Lily bowls me, bounced the first up, hits me in the head. Not good, so I went down to Wally and said, bugger this, well, in or out. So I decided to have a bit of a go at it, and it's one of those times, that a few got connected in the middle, and away they went.
He's got hold of it, it's a big one. It races out over the square leg fence. What a magnificent hit. He's gone again, it's got a massive hit. That's right into the members, that's 15 metres back.
He's still going at it, and that's an enormous hit. In fact, I think that one's gone further than the one that he hit off Ken McClay.
Yeah.
Play going back, and he won't go back far enough. It's into the stands again. So that's the onside field placing for Lilly. And that one was bowled outside the leg stump. He's got hold of it and lofted it over the fine leg fence, going some 10 rows back into the crowd, and that's the 5th 6 for Lance Cairns. This is unbelievable. Backs off again and thrashes that one, and that's clear. Graham Woods headed it off. There's the 6th one.
And so began the legend of Excalibur. Not a sword, but a bat used with frightening strength.
I know what people wanted from me, what they expected of me when I walked out there to bat. The thing that, once again, I play my game a certain way, especially the one-day game, and if I connect and hit the ball right, I hit it. But I'm not going out there to please the public sort of thing.
But he did.
That's almost at the airport. To Cairns. Dance down the wicket. Randall's underneath this one, but it's over at the top of him. That's 6.
And he found an unusual rival.
Turner high in the air. This is over the top and 6.
What a fine shot. There it is, into the road. 1, 2, 3 bounces, and away it goes.
I went from, if you like, being criticised for blocking to at the end, or towards the end of my career, I was accused of giving it away and playing in too swashbuckling a manner. In fact, Lance Cairns actually mentioned that he felt that I was going over the top with my aggression, and I thought, I've made it then.
After beating Test newcomers Sri Lanka, we headed to England determined to win a Test there for the first time. And it was Lance Cairns, the bowler, who did the damage at Headingley.
And he's gone. Lance Cairns has struck again.
Goes into the in-swinger or the out-swinger to the left-hander with 3 slips. And he's bowled him. 6 wickets for Cairns. What a field day he's having. He's hoisted that away to long leg. Is it going to be taken? Yeah, very safely pouched, and that is 7 wickets for Lance Cairns.
Solid batting by John Wright with 93.
He's done it in good style this time.
Bruce Edgar 84.
Short on the offside is made sure this time. That's 4 runs.
And Richard Hadley 75 gave us a 152-run lead. Then Ewan Chatfield with 5 wickets and Lance Cairns with 3 and 10 for the match set up the victory.
Took off that one. Oh, that kept low, almost ran along the ground.
And he's caught it, beautifully caught low down by Crowe.
And that's it. First ball from Ian Botham brings the 4 runs. And New Zealand have won their first ever test match in England.
I did a lot of work at times for very little reward. And when you do get the big payday, you know, you really enjoy it. And I think that night, after we'd won the test, it was a huge night. And we all enjoyed it. But it's a thing that probably sort of gets me a little bit, that with the batting side of it, people sort of remember me for those 6s, and then the bowling side of it sort of forgotten about. And I thought I did quite well for the type of bowler I was in the test arena.
But not only the victory became a talking point.
Well, I think apart from winning the game, I think the main thing was that Richard Hadley got no wickets, which is, you know, it didn't happen very often. And we had a few after the game, I remember that. I couldn't remember much the next day.
For the English pros in the side, it was a major breakthrough.
Yeah, it was a great feeling. Particularly, I remember sitting next to Jeff House, and Jeff and I were both professionals in England. And in many ways, you know, New Zealand cricket, we did, you know, I played with a South African over there, and his opinion was always more relevant than mine. And I think, you know, that no one, you know, they thought we could play, but they didn't really think that, you know, we were a really good cricketing side. And just to beat England on English soil, you know, it was fantastic. I remember Jeff saying, I think we were both on our 20th fag, sort of. He said, I don't care what happens as long as we win that one.
And those who had gone before also shared in the moment.
I can remember, I think, almost a tear in the eye of one Walter Hadley at Headingley back in 1983.
Yeah, it was there. Don't worry about that. More than in the eye, it came down the cheek.
The series was lost, but an important milestone was achieved, and the following year a series was won when we beat England by an innings. Richard Hadley's 99 off only 81 deliveries being a higher score than England managed in either of their turns at bat.
Oh, that's a nice shot from Richard Hadley. He managed to elude Derek Randall in the covers. 4 runs to Hadley.
In 1985, we found an unlikely batting hero in Ewan Chatfield, whose skills with a willow had once almost killed him and ended a test match.
Yeah, that wasn't the one I got ensconced, was it?
That's the one we're asking about. Yeah.
Well, it was one of these things that we were 9 down, I think, and Jeff House and I were going to try and bat all day. It was due to rain later on in the day, but I think in the end it never did. And I was just hanging around, being a bit of a nuisance, I suppose, as number 11s can be. And Peter Lever thought it was about time he got rid of me, one way or another. And you know, I honestly don't think it was a bouncer. It was just a short pitch ball that I didn't quite pick up, and I think it came off the top of my glove or my handle of on the bat and just ricocheted in the side of my head.
Left-hand side of the face.
Chat's lightheartedness belies the true situation.
Bernard Thomas, the then English physio, he came out into the ground and immediately diagnosed Ewan Chatfield had swallowed his tongue. Like I said, we didn't know anything about this, and by this time he was turning blue. I couldn't watch anymore because he was just turning blue, he was frothing at the mouth, and he was really struggling to breathe. So it was lucky Bernard Thomas came, because it was just that sort of instant, apparently, and I found out later, that Ewan Chatfield sort of stopped breathing for a couple of seconds because we didn't react quick enough to getting his tongue out and giving him mouth-to-mouth resuscitation, which is indeed what Bernard Thomas did.
In 1985, it was Lance Cairns who could have quoted a former world boxing champion who said, "Honey, I forgot to duck," after one defeat.
Oh, and Lance Cairns has been hit very hard indeed on the head.
Akram fired it in short. Lance Cairns turned away. I think probably after a blow like that he should sit down for a short while at least.
Brendan Bracewell came and went, and when Chats joined Jeremy Coney, 51 runs were needed. Then there was controversy.
They were getting at me, of course. They were getting a bit uptight because they, you know, I think we were 1 up in the series at that stage, and we were 9 down, and they couldn't get us out, either Jerry or I. Yeah, there was, and of course there was even more when Fred got into the game about bowling short pitch balls that hit the number 11. You know, there's a few times I got hit on the head and things, and they were getting up at Fred a little bit about it. But yeah, there was verbal, and I dare say if we were in the same situation, we'd be given a bit of verbal as well.
I can take him off eventually if he continues to do it, and by God we will.
Okay, then we'll go off, right? Then it's up to you.
No. That's a warning. That's an official warning.
Once again, could you say...
Dad doesn't want to know about it.
I was a wreck. You know, I don't know whether you saw me at tea time, but, you know, I never drink tea or coffee at any time of the day, and here I was trying to drink tea at afternoon tea time, and I never got a sip because all of it ended up on the floor in the saucer, and I was just shaking that much. It was unbelievable.
Then a bit of luck.
And it's edge. And dropped.
But through it all, grit and determination.
It's away through mid-wicket. They'll certainly get 2. They'll be looking for 3. No, they're content to take 2, and that's Jeremy Coney's 100.
Well, nicely turned by Chatfield. This could be 4. Indeed, it is 4. Facing Nakash. Works it away on the onside. This is 1 run. Are they going to come back for the second? Here comes the throw from Hafiz. They're home, and New Zealand have won the Test match.
I couldn't get off the field fast enough and get into that dressing room because, you know, I was just absolutely gone. Emotional, you know, it was just when Jerry hit that winning run. I just it was a magical piece of time, really. It was an afternoon I'll never forget, Stockley. And, you know, and if anybody these days asks me the highlight of my career, it's got to be that, because I think that I did something that is not my normal thing in cricket.
Would you have gone out to bat had you been required?
Yes, I was crook. I was real crook. And I got up from out of there and I went outside and sat down in the tunnel. And yeah, I was prepared to go out there, but I wouldn't have made the middle. But I would have given it a go.
Today, Chat still plays cricket. And what about that helmet?
And it's still there now, mate, and I still wear it everywhere I go today.
The 1985 tour to the West Indies was Geoff Howarth's last. Our most successful captain ever was not happy.
I asked for an explanation when it was first told to me that I was dropped, and none was forthcoming. And I felt that very strange. Like I said, the fact that I'd been the captain for 5 years and a reasonably good one, I think I could have done better, or they could have treated me a little bit better by giving me an explanation. Than what they did by the chairman of selectors then, Frank Cameron, didn't say a word.
He left memories of a class batsman.
There's one of them at least. Down to third man. They're going for 2. This could be close, but Howarth's home. There's his 100. Geoffrey Howarth, 100.
And a fine leader on and off the field.
Just casts his eye towards the scoreboard.
Today, Howarth lives in England, and the former Surrey professional has definite views on how county cricket helped the New Zealand scene.
What we gained in 1 year was equivalent to playing sort of 3 to 5 years in New Zealand. That's the amount of cricket we were playing over here, the type of cricket we were playing, the cricketers that we were playing against. 1 year's experience in England was equivalent to 3 to 5 years in New Zealand. And so our game progressed much quicker, and we matured much quicker than perhaps a New Zealand-born, and not New Zealand-born, a New Zealand-based player. And the experience that we brought back with us, I think, had a profound effect.
The summer of 1985-86 was one of the sweetest ever for the team. And the maestro, Richard Hadlee. New Zealand won a series in Australia.
That's beautifully taken. He has got good hands.
Hadlee took 33 wickets.
He's out. First ball after lunch. He's driven on the up to cover.
Including 15 at the Gabba.
It's gone, yes. Beautiful piece of bowling.
9 in the first innings.
Oh, and that's got to be very close. I would say that's out, yes. On right through him. On, he's gone through Phillips as well.
It's gone. Great catch. He gone, yes, 9 wickets. What a wonderful performance from Richard Hadley. One of the all-time great performances at the Gabba. His teammates must congratulate the great fast bowler.
You probably try and look for the near-perfect performance in one's career, and you may never even get that far. I mean, it's probably so far beyond comprehension. Well, that particular test match was as close as I could get to it, I guess. And 9 wickets for 52, a New Zealand record, obviously, and I caught the other fella out. And so to get on the score sheet 10 times, I think only Jim Laker would probably be the only other player to ever done that. And of course, we all know that he took 19 wickets in a test match, and that's unlikely to ever be repeated, let alone bettered.
And then a brilliant partnership of 224 between John Reid and Martin Crowe set up a decisive advantage.
There it is, and what a way to bring it up. A beautiful straight drive, slightly on the onside. And his 3rd test century.
A beautiful 100. Fist clenched above his head, Jeremy Coney.
And there's the 100 for John Reid. Very quickly through for the 1st and back for the 2nd. Good performance from John Reid, test century number 6.
But I do rate it still as my best ever knock in test cricket. Probably more the way I went about it. I was able to play my shots, and I felt as though, you know, I was dictating terms. So it was unusual, really, to be able to produce my best. But someone like Richard Hadley, of course, upped that and completely stole the limelight.
And he's gone in right through him, and that makes it 6 in the 2nd innings, 15 for the match. And New Zealand have won by an innings and 41 runs.
To beat Australia by an innings on their home soil for the first ever time was magic. I mean, it's always nice to beat Australia at any time, but that again helped set up a Test series victory, and it was the greatest New Zealand performance, in my opinion, the near perfect Test match. And while some individuals had some great performances, it was still a good team performance all round. I think we thoroughly deserved it under the captaincy of Jerry Coney, of course, and the coaching of Glenn Turner.
When the Australians returned to New Zealand, they found John Bracewell, the fast bowler trapped in a spin bowler's action, in no mood for messing.
Back goes the off stump. John Bracewell strikes again.
It's an appeal for a catch, and Bruce Reid is out.
And then for the first time, we won a series in England.
Beautifully bowled.
Thanks to a brilliant all-round effort by Richard Hadley at his home away from home, Trent Bridge.
Oops, he's bowled him.
And the batting of John Bracewell.
Oh, he's hit that magnificently. Like lightning, it goes away to the boundary. It's small to Bracewell. He makes it. He makes it. Well played, John Bracewell. A maiden Test century, not without heartache, agony, and I'm sure that was shared by all his teammates.
The years since have been a mixture. We've had home wins over the West Indies, India and Australia, and achieved a prize win in India. This catch against the West Indies was probably the turning point at Lancaster Park in Jeremy Coney's last test. Oh, well, all right, I suppose. The bowling of Chats, Paddles and Sneds and the batting of Martin Crowe may have helped, but they've already featured, haven't they?
The West Indian captain is out. Marvellous catch.
India all out.
A win in India is a prized possession for a New Zealand cricketer, and John Wright remembers well the day he led his team to victory.
It was an incredible afternoon. It was a big crowd, Sunday crowd, and Braces bowled magic. He got a wicket just before tea. He got Sidhu and Vinsaka just before tea, and then we started to have them on the ropes. I remember catching Kapil Dev, and Jonesy ran all the way from third man to pat me on the back. It's something he's never done, and it was a great feeling of unity, positive, and it was hard, and great memories.
And Kapil pulls out into the cover. John Wright making no mistake. Kapil going for a big drive. Astute positioning of the field by skipper John Wright. Into the air, he could be out-caught. Chatfield under it, and that's it. New Zealand have defeated India.
I found it quite ironical to think that the very day that we looked like we were going to win, our beer arrived from home.
Yeah, and I think Ken Dees, the manager, bought the most expensive bottle of champagne that probably New Zealand Cricket Council's ever paid for. Don't know what champagne cost in India, but it was a few rupees.
Oh, I think we got past those little, you know, we got over those difficulties and managed to enjoy the win. You know, because it was a good side, and I think any New Zealand cricketer that's ever toured Pakistan or India, really, you know, sometimes those are the tours you talk of when the sides do become very strong in team spirit. I love my tours of Pakistan and India.
He was never ever afraid of anybody, any batsman.
Oh, and he's gone right through his defence. Border.
A good bat. He probably timed the ball better than anyone in the team, batting-wise.
Oh, a glorious shot from Richard Hadlee.
Richard Hadlee was the best cricketer to play with. He was the one that set us up for most of our victories.
Edge.
Obviously bowling, it was just a matter of turning up for him.
Someone really quick. Both of them would be looking for one. And as has he caught it? Yes, he has.
At Gully, Willie, you know, took some amazing catches. He's a brilliant cricketer.
To guard. Oh, and a marvellous catch again. It's Richard Hadlee.
And he's got knighthood as well, so I suppose he must be good.
So he could bat, could he?
Well, if it was up, it was off. If it was short, I'd be in some difficulty, to say the least.
Set us up for most of our victories. Just a matter of turning up at the office. What about Michael Whitney?
Here it comes, last ball of the test. Australia have done it. They've won the series. Well played, Mike Whitney.
Why couldn't you get Whitney out that day?
Well, that's the point. I mean, I had 6 balls at him, didn't I? And anything I bowled straight, he kept out. Anything that was just a little bit outside the off stump, he played and missed. And actually, it could have got you another catch.
Yeah,
It could have got me that much closer, couldn't it, to the world record?
Sir Richard Hadlee, the holder of the world record for most test wickets.
That's 100.
Bowling to Alan Border. Ball again for LBW. There it is. 300 test wickets for Richard Hadlee.
Shout for LBW, and the wicket has been taken. Richard Hadlee equals Ian Botham's world record of 373 test wickets.
And that's the world record.
LBW, and will that be a wicket for Richard Hadlee with his last ball in Test cricket to join a very select group of players who've done that?
Significant for me, and I think very important for New Zealand cricket, because when you look at world record sort of thing in cricket, you start looking at the English, you start looking at the Australian players, but little old New Zealand was starting to feature, and I think that was a great part of history for us.
Great cricketer, no doubt, but he needed his mates every now and then, didn't he? But seriously, simply the best.
Magnificent delivery.
Right, Richard, I mean, you've got a reputation for being a great statistician. I mean, you know, you look forward to so many marks. I'm going to test you. I've got a bit of a Peter Sinclair quiz here for you, okay?
Why?
We'll just see how good you are, all right? Who's your first test wicket?
First one was Asif Iqbal at Wellington, 73.
100th?
100th would be Imran Khan at Napier in 79.
200th?
Norman Cowans, Trent Bridge in 83, I think it was, yes.
246.
Pass.
300.
300, Alan Border at Wellington in 86.
373.
373, Dynamite, I think it was, at Melbourne in 86.
374.
374, Aaron Lowell, Bangalore in 88.
400.
Mandrake here at Lancaster Park in 1990, I think it was.
Who was your last one? And he was a toughie, wasn't he?
He was a toughie. Devon Malcolm, actually. LBW no score. In fact, he faced 6 balls in that match. He got a pair and asked me to sign his run chart.
Is that right?
Yeah.
I give up. The answer to the past question was, well, who really cares? And Dodamaid was Melbourne in 1987. Oh, well, he has retired, hasn't he? But like so many young Canterbury lads, Sir Richard's love of cricket was nurtured at Lancaster Park.
I used to come down here and collect bottles and take them into the shop and get about 2pence for it so I could buy an ice cream. Yeah. But I also sold the programs here at the ground. And I worked up on the scoreboard as well, and you often look down from the scoreboard and think, well, one day, wouldn't it be great to actually be playing a first-class game or a test game for Canterbury or New Zealand on Lancaster Park?
But he did have an advantage, a cricketing family that boasted 3 other internationals.
He had a very distinct natural ability when he was a little boy, say from the age of 7 or 8 onwards. And he just loved playing cricket, and he loved talking, being a bit of a private broadcaster and all this sort of thing, but it was always about cricket or rugby.
It was pro cricket with Nottinghamshire that was the real turning point.
It's like any job. If you do it 6 days a week, you get into good habits, good disciplines and good routines. And so really English cricket fine-tuned me as a better player, as a near-perfect player. And really it made me a pretty useful bowler.
What an understatement that is.
The standard is now set. And I think that the confidence is there, the direction is there, I think the coaching structure is right, the opportunity for younger players is certainly there. But at the end of the day, it's up to those players who are now given the opportunity to represent New Zealand.
Let's hope it is the start of a great era. But I'll be a little bit hesitant yet to say, you know, we're going to have a great side coming through this year and next year. I mean, I prefer to look in about 2 years' time.
We do have athletes of great natural ability, and I think we've always got the ability to produce players in this country.
I think we are going through a rebuilding stage. I mean, there's people like yourself, Smithy. Are you a young gun, mate? And 1 or 2 others. I mean, young righty. But, you know, we've had a big turnover just recently, and I think that that's still going to continue. We've still got a sorting out to be done, I think.
We were lucky that when we started off that we actually had 4 English pros playing in our team, where the guys today haven't got anybody. And I think that's going to be the hard thing that Martin Crowe's got, is to trying to get the professionalism through the side.
The young guns, the future of New Zealand cricket, are led by Martin Crowe. Nicknamed Hogan after the TV character in Hogan's Heroes because of his leadership qualities, Martin Crowe has been a New Zealand player since 1982, when he made a horror beginning against Australia.
He gets a nick and a foot, caught by Woods.
But he was always destined for the top, and has since been called the greatest white batsman in the world.
That's the best shot we've seen of the innings.
What is it about great players like Richard Hadlee and Martin Crowe that set them apart from the rest?
Well, I'd probably stick my neck out and say that it probably just comes from so far deep in, and Richard came from a cricketing family and so did I, and we were just brought up just loving to play the game and loving to do well. And we knew the history of the game, we knew what we were basically taking the place of, we knew what was ahead. And I think that sort of feeling stays with us 24 hours a day, and that's why we love playing it.
In 1991, Crowe had his biggest payday to date in partnership with the amazing Andrew Jones, who scored the first of a record 3 successive hundreds.
There from Jones, and this brings up his 100.
Laps it away. This will be his 200. Completes the 1 and comes back for the 2nd. And that's a double century for Martin Crowe.
Here's the Soka de Silva bowling to Andrew Jones, who plays a beautiful shot for 4.
And there's the world record. These 2 players have now scored more runs together than any other 2 in Test history.
It's a great thing to be a part of, because it's something you can never think about doing. It just happens, it just comes along, because you can't plan to score 4, 6, 7 together. And we worked really well in that partnership. And the great thing about it was that we didn't get a run out between us.
That was an achievement. That's probably a world record in itself.
And that's the record. Through the gap, that's 4.
More runs in an individual innings than any New Zealand Test batsman.
I set my sights that day of getting to that particular score of 260, and I felt totally in control in doing it. But if I can perhaps go on and say that when I came to the 290s and going to 300, I had no idea how I was really going to do it, because I'd never even thought about it.
He's caught! He's caught! Staggering!
Interesting thinking about that 299, that near 300, was that I stood there before the bowler came in to bowl, thinking that I'd already done it. And I was thinking about the pats on the back and the glory that came with it and the accolades and what have you. And I forgot to turn on to the next ball. And yet for 10 hours I had done it previously.
But there is always another day.
I would like to think that he will go through in the coming season and not just do well for New Zealand in scoring a number of runs, but actually win some games for us. He's conscious that until now he hasn't done it often enough. And so I reiterate, I think we're yet to see the best of Martin Crowe.
How do you view the future as captain of the Young Guns?
It's going to be tough. We've got a lot of hard work ahead, but I think, you know, if we sort of set our goals properly, I think in 3 or 4 years we're going to have a very strong side. It's just that time where we've got to let those young guys come in and settle in, and then I think the future looks good because there is some great talent out there. I'm very keen for us to make the semi-finals and play at Eden Park, and who knows from that point on whether we can go on to win the World Cup. But there are other World Cups hopefully in my career as well, and I would like to think that I could retire with a near World Cup win or even a World Cup victory for New Zealand.
But the last word belongs to John Wright, the oldest young gun and a veteran of 20 Test victories since 1978. One of the game's great triers, Wright led New Zealand to 3 victories between 1988 and 1990, the last against Australia at the Basin Reserve.
In many ways, New Zealanders in New Zealand against Australia, I think we've always performed with that bite and that edge against the Aussies. It brings sometimes the best out in us, particularly in New Zealand, because we always fancy, you know, our chances. And to beat them was, you know, it's a good feeling.
County cricket with Derbyshire made him mentally tough, but it had its negative side as well.
You know, you always want to enjoy the game, but, you know, after a 17-day stint and you're at Bradford on a cold day and there's 2 men and a dog watching, you know, you'd probably rather not be there sometimes.
What's your fondest memory of your long international career?
Well, the guys, really. You know, you could pick wins out here and there. Bombay meant a lot, and of course, you know, the Basin when you're captaining, or winning in England. I mean, you know, that was great. But, you know, really, we've had a lot of laughs. You play for your country. You're in a great environment with, you know, 12, 15 if you're on tour, maybe more guys, New Zealanders, who are really trying, you know, pushing themselves to do something, to achieve something, and you go through highs and lows, and you know, I've met some good people, and to experience losing, it's not great, and then to experience the wins, it's fantastic, you know. Great feeling. You know, I'll never really ever get that again, I don't think. It gives me satisfaction that I set out to try and play cricket for New Zealand, and you know, I've played and I've managed to help. You know, I've been part of it.
We would like to thank Countrywide Bank for their support. Why don't you support them?
I've been advised on money by plenty of experts with different ideas. You can boil it all down to one simple piece of common sense. Bank investments that offer a good return are best. You probably know that already. So like me, you're considering a Countrywide Bank Investorline account or term deposit. I know my money is well looked after at Countrywide Bank, while I'm spending more time at the back of the house. Think about it.